Hi guys, I'm Megan Gertis and my final project is about food insecurity in the Caribbean. So today I'm going to be talking about why funding agencies should support these solutions and also why local citizens should implement these ideas. Member countries of the Caribbean community include Belize, Grenada, Guyana, Haiti, Jamaica, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, and Suriname. There are other countries such as the Bahamas and Dominican Republic that do not suffer as many food issues as these countries. Haiti definitely suffers from the most food insecurity in this region. While there are 2.5 million Haitians that live in extreme poverty, it is the poorest country in the northern hemisphere. 2 out of 3 Haitians live on $2 per day, and this is an extreme problem because 10% of the richest Haitians possess 70% of the country's total income. So some of the main food issues in the Caribbean include a lack of self-sufficiency. The farmers in this region highly depend on rain, and only 10% of the crops are irrigated. There's a limited food and feed crop value chain development. The Caribbean has become much more reliant on imports due to very low quality in their exports, and there is a very low use of domestic agriculture products in this region. In the Caribbean region, the system approach needs to include proper food production, labor, processing, marketing, especially with women in the marketing area, businesses, policy, and consumption in order for the food system to run well. And there also needs to be strengthening agriculture and increasing support to small scale and family farming. This will ensure greater sufficiency in the local food production and will protect your guys' economies from external price shock. So cultural and sociological aspects. The Caribbean needs to take advantage of its most popular and traditional dishes, including jerk chicken and seafood, that have helped the Caribbean food system in the past. So this means that the Caribbean does not need to end the production of animal production food because in this country it would cost too much due to malnutrition and poverty. Animal production really helps with malnutrition and self-sufficiency in this country. So for historical aspects, in past decades, the Caribbean has experienced important developmental roles from the production of sugar and bananas in the land. However, in recent years, the production and export of sugar and bananas has declined and is no longer been the supply for foreign exchange needed to purchase other imports. So really in this region, the country needs to look into neighboring countries such as Cuba, who has offered to assist in the fight of the Black Sigatoka plague that has affected banana production. And we really need to look into these two sources to be very important for economic growth, employment, and sustainability in this region. And as far as political aspects, the governmental grants an increase in globalized political economics to make the region an ideal place for research and growth in feed crop value chain development. Also, the government really needs to promote the use of technologies that increase productivity and enhance competitiveness throughout the Caribbean, also improving standards and distribution systems to deliver regular supplies needed in the region. So land-grant universities can play a major role in the teaching, research, and outreach to help improve the issue of lack of self-sufficiency and an over-necessity of imports in the region of the Caribbean. First off, land-grant universities can start teaching proper utilization of domestic agriculture products and how to develop a more prevalent crop value chain by defining the ideas of inbound logistics, which refers to everything involved in receiving, storing, and distributing the raw materials used in the production process. We really need to talk about inbound logistics because this has to do with everything involving imports and everything inside of the region. And then they can talk about operations, which is the stage where raw products are turned into the final product, and this is a really important stage for the Caribbean. Also, you can talk about outbound logistics and services. And then for research, agricultural research needs to provide sustainability for the Caribbean's most valuable resources, such as banana and sugar, to help sway away from the necessity of imports. But it also needs to regain those foods and aid in supplying foreign exchange for imported goods when needed. And then outreach. So we need to look at the University of Florida. It's one of the most near states to the Caribbean, and they should offer to reach out to the Caribbean region and provide education on solving these issues. We can also look into outreaching by doing field trials, demonstrations, and crop experimentations in the region. So the local people in the Caribbean need to understand the basic elements of food security in order to implement solutions in these issues, and they need to know that there is low availability to food due to low food production, stock levels, and net trade, due to being very dependent on imports but not very successful in exports. Also, access. So, no matter whether you have availability or not, we need to make sure that people in Haiti that are suffering from such poverty actually have access, and this is going to be really relying on how successful our markets are pushing the access to these foods. And then from there, they need to understand utilization, how the food is being processed in their bodies, and then stability. Can we keep the food intake and food production stable and adequate in the country? And so we can start off with food safety. These are things that we can just simply do day to day. Cleaning the food, separating the food, cooking and chilling the food very, very well and very looked after when we do this. So if we can improve our food safety, there is much opportunity to increase food exports because there has been a dramatic loss in food exports. So this has been due to microbiological contamination in the food, and so this has increased poverty. So we need to look at just simply handling the food better, because this contamination has caused an increase in the necessity for food aid. So I think if we can stop this contamination in the country, we can improve the exports, and then we won't be as reliant on our imports. So cultural trade, political and economic barriers offer opportunities and disadvantages to food issues in the Caribbean. Opportunities, for instance, we can take advantage of our cultural dishes to increase local market through lowering prices. And then we can also have the opportunity to protect our domestic economy amongst other economies in the world. And then disadvantages, there's definitely trade barriers because of decreasing export availability. So this definitely becomes a barrier for our imports. Also, political barriers are very apparent due to the upper percent of the richest people in the Caribbean possessing most of the country's total income. So there's not a very wide variety of distribution amongst to the poor people in the country. And then government is accustomed to non-technological forms of food production. This is very apparent. So we need to look into better forms of irrigation and also definitely keep track of post-harvest losses. Post-harvest losses have become an economic barrier for the Caribbean region. The Caribbean region is filled with many islands and is one of the most vulnerable regions to the impact of climate change, especially in Haiti, where shocks are induced very frequently, and climate change threatens over 500,000 Haitians every single year. And so, from the FAO, Graziano de Silva has stressed how the island nations of the Caribbean are particularly vulnerable to extreme natural events such as hurricanes. These have been more frequent, violent, and very unpredictable due to climate change. So it threatens our agriculture, food security, and sustainable development. So these funding agencies really need to know that climate change does have a major impact on the Caribbean region. And due to climate change, there's risk of soil degradation, which can also decrease the water availability and affect the quality of our water in this region. So the local people need to understand the idea of sustainable agriculture. This is efficient production of safe, high-quality agricultural products in a way that protects and improves the natural environment, the social and economic conditions of farmers, their employees, and local communities, and safeguards the health and welfare of all farm species. Local people really need to look into these ideas and just know the general idea about what sustainable agriculture means. And then as far as organic agriculture, this can be a really, really helpful way of farming for people in the Caribbean, but we need to know that there's limited land, so this impacts the use of organic agriculture in the region. The region offers the world's largest reservoirs of arable land. About 47% of soil is covered with forests, but this figure is rapid decline because of an expanding agricultural frontier. So we just really need to look into that while thinking about organic agriculture. But there are also benefits to organic farming. Research has shown that there can be an increase in income, reduction to non-renewable energy, various practices such as crop rotations can be very helpful for the environment in the Caribbean. And then also soil building is another impact that organic farming has on the region. As far as GMOs, the proposal is that the Caribbean should promote the use of GMOs but highlight the risks. There's opportunities for the Caribbean in regards to the use of GMOs, such as increased crop yield and reducing local prices, and then vitamin enrichment in these organisms. But there are also risks to GMOs. Altering the original organism can cause risk and vulnerability to diseases in an already very vulnerable region as the Caribbean. And then in the Caribbean, there's confusion among consumers because consumers aren't very used to the concept of GMOs. So really in the future, it's all about transparency and just letting them know what is in the food of the GMOs. And then for water production and conservation, we just really need to highlight soil management, which can help water production, and then know that the world overview conservation approaches and technology has offered to aid in water production and conservation in the region of the Caribbean. So in the conclusion, people in the Caribbean just kind of need to know that solutions in food security will occur when communication barriers are broken, there's more utilization of local food systems, food safety improvement solves export risks, and then the Caribbean takes advantage of cultural and traditional dishes that have helped them in the past. By implementing these ideas, we can begin to solve food issues in this region of the Caribbean.